Good morning, everybody. Thank you for being here today. Appreciate you taking a few moments. If you want to follow along, we'll be back in the story of Abraham in chapter number 21, beginning in verse number 8. No, excuse me. Verse number 8. I'm sitting here looking at it. Sorry. In one of those moments. 21, chapter 8, through verse 11. Excuse me. It's one of those brain freezes. Like, share, comment on the post, and then we read these words. And the child, speaking of Isaac, grew and was weaned. And Abraham made a great feast on the day that Isaac was weaned. But Sarah saw the son of Hagar the Egyptian, whom she had borne to Abraham, laughing. Laughing here doesn't mean that he was having a good time. The word laughing here, our word would be mocking. And in fact, the Hebrew word that is translated here doesn't just mean that he was laughing, but he was continually laughing. He was always mocking, making fun of Isaac. So she said to Abraham, "Cast out this slave woman with her son, for the son of this slave woman shall not be heir with my son Isaac." And the thing was very displeasing to Abraham on account of his son. Let's talk about where we are. We are in the middle of conflict, obviously. There's conflict between Ishmael and Isaac, although it can't be much because at this point Isaac is probably about 2 and Ishmael is probably about 16. So I don't think Ishmael was running around beating up the baby, but there was friction there. No doubt there would have been friction between Sarah and Hagar. There was friction, most likely in this situation, between Abraham and Sarah, because it says he didn't want to run his son off. He didn't want to make Hagar and Ishmael leave. A lot of friction, a lot of conflict to go around. And one might ask, how is there this much conflict in this family? Well, there is this much conflict in this family for the same reason that there is conflict in any family, in any workplace, in any community, anywhere. And that is one simple word, and that word is sin. Let's go back, and there's plenty of it to go around. There's plenty of blame to assign. Obviously, the original sin that was committed, that brought Ishmael into the world to begin with. We can talk about this teenage boy's sin of mocking an innocent child. We can talk about the sin of Hagar and her jealousy over the baby and the relationship there. We can talk about the sin of Sarah, who put the idea in Abraham's mind to begin with, and now she is jealous of Hagar and her child. There is, again, we can talk about, no doubt, the sin between Abraham and Sarah of failing to trust God. We can just throw jealousy everywhere. That's all over the place. In other words, it's all about sin. Everything going on here is sin, plain and simple. Anytime you see conflict, if you dig long enough, you will find sin. It's just unavoidable. Somebody, somewhere, has sin. It's just a simple reality, and that is the case here in this family. And again, it's got to the point now where it's hard to point fingers and place blame, because they're all throwing mud at this point. It's going pretty hot and heavy. Everybody's, no doubt, Ishmael's probably a little irritated with his father. He's probably irritated with Abraham because he sees the attention he's paying Isaac. Maybe Ishmael's probably a little aggravated at his mama. Why don't you stand up for me? Sarah's mad at Abraham. Why don't you stand up against her? There's plenty of mud to sling here, and all that mud comes back to sin. Everywhere you look in this thing, and you can be sure anytime you see conflict, there's sin. One of the greatest lessons that I ever learned was in a book many years ago when I was in seminary that we read, and it was a book on counseling. And over the years, you can imagine, I've read quite a bit on counseling. And many of them try to go back and say, well, trace the family history and find out about the parents and, all these kind of things. And the author of this book said, find out where the sin is. Said any time, and he said this, and it has kind of revolutionized my thinking in dealing with couples or in any situation. When there's a problem in a marriage, there's sin. When there's a problem in a home, there's sin. Children and parents, sin. Everywhere you look, sin. It always is the case. And to be exact, what Brandt's words were in that book was, if you listen long enough, you'll find out somewhere a biblical principle is being violated. Well, what is that? Sin. And so Ishmael, is always mocking the baby. No doubt he's jealous of the attention that the baby is getting. Again, that's probably the case in a lot of homes where there's a 16, 17-year-old kid and a baby comes along. This one was amplified because, again, Isaac was seen not only as the baby, but he was the heir. He was the heir apparent. He was the child of promise. And I'm sure Hagar and Ishmael had heard that till they were sick of hearing about Isaac, the child of promise. And Sarah is finally to the point where she's had it, and she wants him gone. Obviously, I think Abraham, it's his son. I think he loved his son. I can't say that he didn't love Hagar by now. She was the mother of his son. And so Abraham has a heavy heart here. He is displeased, it says. Again, 2 lessons I want you to learn today. Anytime there's conflict, trouble between people, you can trace it to somewhere a biblical principle is being violated, somewhere sin is being committed. And anytime sin enters the picture, somebody is going to have a broken heart. In this case, it was Abraham, and maybe some of the others when it was all said and done. But at this point, it was Abraham. Conflict is dangerous. It is destructive, and it requires a lot of confidence and faith. And that's one of the other things that we see happening here is none of these people believed what God was saying or what God had promised. Sin hurts, always hurts, and it always breaks hearts. You remember that today. Have a good one. We will see you here tomorrow morning.